Okay, so we are live now. Okay, so that
Awesome.
was fun. So thank you for being here. My name is LaQuita Parks, and I am the host of The Power of Your Story. And it's so funny, Michael, because I do a Power of Your Story on Clubhouse on Tuesday mornings, and I have a podcast called My Heart on Pages. And every Thursday, I get them twisted. And I'll start saying my heart on pages. And like, this is not my heart on pages. This is the power of your story. So we were talking, Michael and I. We're going to give him a chance to introduce himself. But I'm excited about this topic today because Michael's going to share his story and he's going to see if he can help me with my chronic pain. So if you're listening in, send a message. You can ask questions and let us know if this helps or if Michael can help you guys. But I'm looking forward to this. I've suffered with chronic pain since I was 4 years old, and I'm 53 years old. Or I will be 53 in a couple of months. And I was sharing that when I went to the Mayo Clinic 4 times at the Mayo Clinic. The last time there, after they had gotten all the tests, they said, while you're not dying, you are suffering because everything that you have, every condition has its own pain source. So I have connective tissue diseases. And if you know anything about connective tissue diseases, when one thing goes into a flare, it triggers the other thing. So some days I don't know if it's fibromyalgia, or if it's RA, if it's lupus. I don't know which pain it is or what day. However, because I'm stubborn and I don't like taking pain medicine, and some people say, well, you just suffer through it. It's a lot of pain, but I try and use as natural remedies to help myself because I don't want to take anything that's going to cause me to not be coherent. I don't like anything that makes me feel lethargic. I don't like anything that makes me feel outside of myself where I can't, if it says I can't operate a vehicle, it's a problem for me. So I use natural remedies. I make my own pain rollers, and I have my trusty little pain roller here. And so it doesn't take the pain away, Michael, but it does give me enough release to keep on doing what I'm able to do. So without further ado, Michael, you guys know me. I'm the owner and CEO of Pay Per View Publishing and all that jazz. We'll talk about that a little later. But Michael, please tell us who you are. Tell our audience who you are and what you do, and how you gonna help heal me.
Well, what I'm going to do, well, good for you that it no longer matters what something is, because the next moment it can be something totally different.
Yes.
You've been living an experience that isn't necessarily the truth.
Okay.
And so I'm Michael, by the way. I live in Portland, Oregon. And I'll share my story and then we'll just kind of go back through it and then we'll get back to you, okay?
Okay.
So in 2015, I had just had a back surgery. I had an 8.5 millimeter protrusion in L4, L5 in my back. I'd been in pain for 2.5 years. I'd already had 7 right knee surgeries, 2 left knee surgeries, 2 broken ankles, a torn quad, 2 torn hamstrings, all this stuff. The doctors said that it was from sports, right? But there were plenty of people that played sports that didn't have all those injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And so I reherniated the same disc about 3 weeks later, only to find out not only did I have the protrusion in L4, L5, but I also had torn labrums and bilateral impingements in both hips.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a majority of the pain that I was experiencing for the 2 years was because of the hips and not just the back.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a moment of feeling as if I was out of options, because the hip surgeon wanted me to do back surgery again and then get in shape for 6 months to a year before he would do my hips. And
so you had to, they wanted you to have one surgery, but then go through the process of healing in order just to get to the next surgery.
right.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
I was done with all those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. The time frames no longer matched up. So in a moment of feeling as if I was out of options, I went out of town. I hiked up to a river. I put all my pain in a rock and I threw the rock in the river. The moment I threw the rock was the moment I had an instant healing experience. But it was also the moment that I realized that the rock didn't take the pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like one moment I had these things and the next moment I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like one moment my pain level was a 10, the next moment I had no pain.
Mm-hmm.
The day before, I tried to take my kids paddleboarding and I couldn't even stand up on a paddleboard.
Mm-hmm.
I drove home and I paddleboarded across the Columbia River, which it's about a half mile, each way. So I knew something had changed.
Mm-hmm.
But also, the moment before that experience, when I looked back, I saw all the things in my life I wanted to change. The next moment, I didn't want to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
So my first knee injury was when I was 15. I thought my life was over. Sports was the only thing that I wanted to do. I didn't think I was going to be able to compete anymore. The doctor said it was going to be 6 months before I could run again. I thought 6 months was the rest of my life. I made a poor decision to start drinking, and that sent me into 10 years of addiction to drugs and alcohol.
This
Spent
was
2 years in,
that started at 15?
yeah, 15, yes.
15. Okay.
Yeah. And I ended up spending 2 years in prison. I've been clean and sober for 21. But these were all the things that when I look back, these were the things that I wanted to change. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going through a divorce at the time.
Okay.
Right. So in that moment, not only did I have a physical healing experience, but also I had a change of heart, because the change of heart is what allowed it to be permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So the change of heart was what allowed me to look back and see purpose in everything that happened, instead of feeling as if I missed out on things.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the moment I had my healing experience was the moment that I found my purpose, and then found out that I could focus my intention on others, and they've been able to heal instantly as well.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Now, for me, I'm highly empathic. I operated, and I know you are too, because everybody that says lupus and fibromyalgia and all that stuff that you listed is all a result of being highly empathic, but operating very sympathically.
Mm-hmm.
You feel everything.
Yeah.
I felt everything.
Yeah.
So for me feeling everything and me not thinking my life was going the way that I wanted it to go, I chose to take on not only my stuff, but everybody else's stuff, which just continued my, I guess, deterioration to where all these things were happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it wasn't necessarily sports, it was disharmony, but the sports put me in a position to injure myself. The disharmony is what created the imbalance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So right after my healing experience, I sought validation for an experience that I just had.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Like I'm healed, so why? So let me validate this. Let me just make sure. Right.
Right. Because it's hard to know, because even though I believed that that was possible, it's hard to grasp that it is really possible.
Yeah.
And so I immersed myself in like the energy community. But all the people that I came across weren't necessarily doing things instantly, because their experiences took time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it didn't take me very long to work back to knowing that it can be instant. And like in that moment when my healing, and it's not that I healed myself, in that moment, I just allowed myself to heal.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
all the stuff that I'd been holding on to was preventing me from healing.
Got you.
The rock allowed me to let it go, but the rock didn't take my pain, because the pain is already accounted for. We were actually already perfected. We're just not living perfectly yet, because we don't think we have the choice to, because of everything that has happened. Right. So right in the beginning, like one of the first people that I helped had a sty in their eye, and I wanted it out of their eye so bad that I put it in my eye. And it took me 8 hours to get it out of my eye.
So tell me, you put it in your eye. So you want, and I'm assuming, I'm going to make some assumptions here. I'm assuming that you were so in tuned in the sty in their eye that it manifested in your own eye. Is that what you're saying?
I was still operating fairly sympathically and not empathically.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So instead of me healing people, I'm just an example of possibility that people can heal themselves. How do I know? Because I already had a healing experience myself. And I know that I'm no different, no better, no worse than anybody else. If I can have a healing experience, anybody can have a healing experience. Right? But I had to learn not to sympathize with people, right? Like in the beginning, I thought I needed to feel everything that people were feeling in order to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned rather quickly that it doesn't do any good to feel what somebody else is feeling, because then there's two people feeling that, right? So for you, you feel
Yeah.
everything. You
Yeah.
feel your stuff and everybody else's stuff, which when that starts to get too full, there's no space for anything else,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So disharmony overflows.
It makes sense. When I started doing mentoring, I started my mentoring program about 10 years ago. And before I officially started, I was dibbling and dabbling a little bit, and I used to go to group homes. And there was a girls group home, and their stories were just so compelling. It would just, just tear my heart apart.
Yeah.
And my mentor said, "This is never going to work for you." And I'm like, "What do you mean? I think I'm good at this and coaching." And he said, "You are. However, you cannot fall over in the ditch with them, because if you fall over in the ditch with them, who's going to pull you out?"
Exactly.
So you're going to have to learn how to be a mentor, learn how to be a coach, learn how to do those things without falling in the ditch with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it isn't. And since the pandemic, and there's been so much, you're right. When you're a person that feels, and when you're super sensitive, you feel everything, and you are very connected with people's, I won't say agony, but with people's pain.
Yeah.
So I can agree with that.
Like right after my healing experience, like the world changed. Like I saw the energy and everything. I felt everything. Like 2 or 3 days later, somebody was running down the street, and I could feel their heartbeat in my chest. And then I found I could feel everybody's heartbeat if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? But I learned rather quickly that it doesn't do me any good to feel what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I really want to help somebody, I just need to be the example of possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So now when I look at like the first one of the first people I helped, they couldn't lift their arms above like right here,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And I did all this stuff. Like I went back in time and cleared stuff up that happened when they were 3 and when they were 5 and when they were 15, and then all of a sudden their arms started working.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But again, I learned rather quickly that all of that stuff isn't necessarily important.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing you have to do is be the example of possibility for someone, and then allow them to have a great enough experience that the past no longer matters. Right? So I've had a blind woman whose vision came back. I had another woman who was in a wheelchair for 11 years that just stood up and walked.
Mm-hmm.
I had another woman that couldn't eat food for 55 years, and now she eats whatever she wants. Like crazy stuff. Right?
So would people? I'm sorry to interrupt. So I'm curious, because do you have people saying, "Oh wow, that's a miracle"?
Yeah,
Because
it is a miracle.
so how do you answer the questions from a biblical standpoint, where the Bible teaches in the New Testament there are no more miracles? So what do you say to that?
Well, miracles happen every day, but Christ has already sacrificed for all of us.
He's already died on the cross.
Right? It happened 2,000 years ago. So we actually are all already perfected.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So the
Perfect.
miracle has actually already happened. We just have to step into it. So it's really up to us. But it's hard to step into a greater experience when we're holding on to the past experiences. So when I'm helping somebody, really all I'm doing is getting out of my head and into my heart, and allowing the other person then to have a heartfelt experience. Because the head thinks, the heart knows.
So it's like having a change of heart is having a change of mind. Changing your mind, saying that I can't do this. It's not going to work. Changing that mindset. That's the beginning. Is that what you're saying? That's where the beginning.
But it's a lot easier when somebody's encouraging you to get somewhere than to try to get you there on your own. Because it's hard to think yourself into your heart. You just have to be in your heart. Right? It's hard to think yourself different. You just have to be different. Right? So if I get out of my head and into my heart and hold that space, people get to choose how they want to be moving forward. If the heartfelt experience is great enough, they choose the greatest of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But really, most of the time when somebody's sick or in pain or whatever, is because the past keeps repeating itself over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But time isn't a constant. Each moment is its own moment to be whatever we create it to be.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I agree.
Right? So that's the only reason miracles happen. That's the only reason healing happens, is because the past isn't necessarily real.
Mm-hmm.
There's only the present moment. But when we create out of the past, we just continue the same experience that we were having. Most
This is
people
good stuff.
don't realize that there's always a choice to have the greatest of experiences, but you got to be willing to let everything go. So, like for you as an example, your
Mm-hmm.
bags are full,
Yes, they are.
right? So if I came
Yes,
up
they
to you
are.
and said, "Hey, I have this amazing thing for you," and your hands are full, you can't even grab it.
Right. That's
Because
right.
for whatever reason, you're like, well, I've got all this stuff. I don't want to let all this go. Right? By me getting out of my head and into my heart, I'm allowing people to let that stuff go. Or if you want to say that that stuff is fear and shame and guilt and all that other stuff, right? When
Mm-hmm.
somebody gets out of their head into that heart, their heart, that switches, that transmutes from fear to love, or
Mm-hmm.
from hate to unconditional love, or shame to love,
Mm-hmm. Or
right?
forgiveness.
Yeah. And we're transitioning from a time of like cause and effect. Like most people live in cause and effect. They
Mm-hmm.
think if one thing happens, then another thing has to happen. But
Yeah,
because time isn't a constant, anything can happen the next moment,
that's right.
regardless of what has happened.
That's
Right?
right.
Like you could step off the sidewalk now, and the next moment your ankle could be better. But you got to let go of stepping off the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Most people will blame themselves for twisting their ankle, and then it takes them, let's say, 6 weeks to work through that.
Mm-hmm.
When any moment they let go of the sidewalk, their ankle can be better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? I had an 18-year-old boy that tore all the ligaments in his ankle. I focused on him. He went and played soccer. He was supposed to have surgery the next Wednesday. The only reason he went is because his mom made him, and the doctor's like, I don't see anything wrong with your ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So to the boy, soccer was enough that he let go of the injury,
Mm-hmm.
or he let go of the fear of not being able to play soccer, or he let go of, you know, not being able to do the things that he wanted to do. The experience was great enough that he chose the greater experience instead of going back to the past.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Wow.
When the experience in the moment is great enough, we won't go back.
Yeah. Why? I mean, if it was something great, if you're experiencing life better than you've known it before, why would you want to go back?
Well, there
Yet,
are some people
yet
that do.
people do. Yet people
Yes.
do. They go back, and I wonder, is it because they go back to what they're used to?
Most of the time, yes. If
Yeah.
somebody has a migraine every morning, it's pretty easy for them to have a migraine in the morning
Right.
because that program's already running
Right.
before they even
Exactly.
realize it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But like if I have somebody that says, hey, I can't walk up and down the stairs, and I focus on them, getting them to take one step might not be enough. If they take 10 steps, that's usually enough to separate them from the statement, I can't walk up and down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they get to the bottom, then they have two choices, walk up and down the stairs or sit back down.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, 10 steps is enough for somebody to realize that they can continue to do it.
Mm-hmm. I've got to do it. I got to do it. I had somebody say I sometimes I have a walker and they say, where's your walker? And I said, it's back there somewhere. Are you using your walker? And I was like, if I'm using my walker, I'm mad because I don't want to use my walker. And so I
Yeah.
don't. And I keep, and so I guess it's working through it. I keep working through it to do what it is that I need to do.
Yeah.
And that the mindset, if I could easily, and I know there are millions of people who do, and you could have too, with everything that's, and probably before you got here, before you healed, there are a lot of people who go through a lot of things and they decide that, you know what, this is, I can use this thing as an excuse to do nothing, and nobody would really blame me. You know, there are people who've been in accidents and who are worse shape than me, worse shape than you were, and decide that, you know what, I don't want to do anything. And then there are those who decide, you know what, I've gone through a lot, but I don't want to, this isn't my life. And that was me when I was at the Mayo Clinic, and the doctor said, while you're not dying, you're not suffering. All I heard was, you're not suffering. I didn't even hear the rest of the diagnosis. I didn't even hear it. It just went, he said it, but all I heard was, while you're not dying, you're not suffering. And when he said that, I said, this is not going to be my life. I'm suffering. I'm not suffering. So this is not going to be my life. So no matter what, I try and get up and keep moving, even though there's pain involved.
Yeah.
But I help other people, and while I'm doing that, thinking about a mind change, while I'm helping people, while I teach creative writing with some sweet little precious babies. They're some sweet little precious darlings. I have about 80 of them in four centers that I go to. And while I'm there, the whole time I'm there, I don't feel any pain. Nothing hurts, because I'm focused on these babies who I'm teaching to write, and their, children are so honest and creative that the only I don't think about anything else. So I agree, having a changed mind is a start. So what would you how would you so we're going to get down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And if you're just tuning in, I'm LaQuita Parks, and this is Michael, Luman. Is it
Luman,
Luman?
yes.
Luman. And we are talking about, Michael is sharing with us his story of how he healed himself and how he went about that, the what led up to it, and what he's been doing since then, and living his best life, living a quality life. And we're going to get into him seeing what he can do to help me to have some relief and be out of pain.
Yeah.
So I need to be a part of your testimony.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't necessarily heal myself. In that moment, I allowed myself to be more perfect than I was the moment before.
I love that. You
Because like
allowed
what I
yourself
said
to be
earlier,
more. You said you allowed your. I'm writing this down. You now, the first thing that you said that was eye opening, and I know it was to a lot of people. You said, you need to be the example of possibilities for somebody.
yes.
So sometimes you say, okay, well, you just need to be the example. But I love it that you didn't stop there. You said, be the example of possibilities. So when someone looks at you and know that you've gone through all this, you're the example of possibilities of what they can achieve.
Yeah.
And I love that. So be the example of possibility. And then what you just said, you didn't heal yourself, but you gave yourself permission to be perfect, more perfect than you were
I
the day
allowed
before.
myself, yes. I
I
allowed
like that.
myself to heal. Like I told you before, we are all already perfected.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think we have a choice to be perfect because of all the things that have happened to us. Right?
Yeah.
As soon as we're willing to let that go, we can have the greatest of experiences. So like for you,
Mm-hmm.
if the story is the nurse jabbed my leg,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'll use an example. I had a woman whose neck hurt. Her pain level was a 10. I focused on her. It went to a 0. She continued to want to blame the chiropractor for her neck hurting.
Mm-hmm.
I kept trying to tell her, but your neck doesn't hurt now.
Mm-hmm.
But then she kept going back and wanting to blame the chiropractor. So it kept waffling back and forth between hurting and feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her she gets to choose. Do you want to have no pain and not blame anyone? Or do you want to have pain and blame someone? Because you can't have both.
Have it both ways. Yeah.
Because when you let go of the past, you have to let go of all the past.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a miracle, you have to forgive yourself and everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So in that moment, she wasn't necessarily willing to let go of the entire story, even though her neck was feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So for you,
Mm-hmm.
you got to let go of the whole story.
Hmm.
But the great thing is that if the experience is great enough in the moment, it's easier to let go of that story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Because it no longer matters. If somebody's feeling great, why does the story that they didn't feel great matter? Just like if somebody steps off the sidewalk and is upset at themselves for twisting their ankle because they can't go to work and they've got this to do and this to do, as soon as their ankle feels better, well, they better not continue to blame themselves for stepping off the sidewalk because it no longer matters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
So
for you,
question for you,
yeah,
question for me. So letting go, and I can do that, and I think I have done. I have, as far as forgiveness, because I never met the nurse, and I often
yeah,
wonder what her life was like. So how does one? So I'm letting go of everything. I'm letting go of the whole story, for to the point of forgiveness or healing, right?
yeah.
So how do I? So how do I? What happens when I pull my compression garment off and I see this mangled, deformed leg and foot.
Yeah,
So how do I let that go?
that's
How do I-
difficult. Hold on, my son's giving me the peace sign for some reason. What do you need, dude?
No, I was just tapping on the gun.
Okay.
Can I round up? Can I have Isaac's random ice cream that he left in the
Yep.
freezer that he's never gonna eat?
Yep.
By the time he gets back, it's not gonna be good.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
I love that. This is live, y'all. We have families, we have children, and children have questions, and I absolutely love it. And we have to see about our babies.
And
I
short
love that.
memories, because I told him 30 minutes ago, hey, I'm going to be busy for the next hour. But so
how
it is
how would I, and so I can definitely see that, because so all about forgiveness. I'm all about forgiving people, and I have that kind of heart, and so I can forgive the nurse, and I can forgive all that, and I can do that. And actually, in some ways, a lot of ways, I've done that because I'm able to keep going and teach other people. I can use it. I can make an excuse. I can use my life as an excuse all day long. But like you said earlier, it doesn't benefit me at all. Doing that, it's downright depressing to me, actually, because I'm stuck there. I don't even do. I do very, very little of why me, because and I do very little, and I cry a lot. I cry sometimes because sometimes the pain gets great, and it's a lot of emotions there. And more so not so much the pain, but the fact that I'm a very independent person,
Yeah.
and there are just some things that I'm not able to do by myself, like that I like to do by myself. So sometimes I get a little upset and frustrated with that. But I can go through that. I can forgive, and I can get to that point. So when I get up in the morning and I'm in the shower, and here's this leg, that's it's right here. It's not. I can heal wounds and heart, but the crippled foot, or the mangled foot and leg, is how do I forget that?
A shift in perspective.
Change the perspective.
Yes. Because our eyes operate in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and our memory operates in the past. It's hard when we've seen something a certain way for so long. It's hard to imagine it can be something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when somebody says, oh, my hand is swollen and the pain level's a 10.
Mm-hmm.
I focus on the hand and I can get the pain to go to a 0.
Mm-hmm.
It might take 6 hours or 8 hours for the swelling to go down, because the perception is that there's no way the swelling can go down instantly.
Mm-hmm.
When you can't see something, it's a little easier to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
had a woman that had just had a baby. Her ab muscles were 5 inches apart. I focused on her. She reached down and she's like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. There's no gap.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't watching the transition. Right? If we were watching it, it might have been harder to grasp.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it probably, I mean, time isn't a constant, like I said. This is the last moment, and then this is the next moment.
Mm-hmm.
In between these moments is perfection. But
Mm-hmm.
it goes like this so quickly right?
You
That
got to
it's hard
slide
for
it
us
there.
to even see the perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And we assume that it is what it was here. So
Mm-hmm.
even though when it's here, it is perfect, like your leg is just as perfect as is not perfect. You've just been experiencing not perfect for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Grasp that it could be anything else is too much to fathom,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? But when we slow this down a little bit, like this is
Mm-hmm.
getting out of our head and into our heart and staying there, right? When
Mm-hmm.
we come back out of that space, big changes can happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's just focus on you and see what happens. How's that?
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So on a scale from 1 to 10, what's your pain level?
Right now, about 7.
A 7. All right. Okay. So just relax for a second. And just so you know, relaxing isn't a requirement, but
Okay.
I just say that because I'm not sure
Hey,
what else to
I'll
say.
go with it. I'll go with it. I said
Yeah.
I could be the guinea pig today, so I'm good.
All right. Here we go. All right. What do you notice now?
Well, not much. I feel some tingling.
All right. Relax again. All right. How about now?
Still tingling.
So now on a scale from 1 to 10, what do you think?
It hasn't changed. It's still the same.
Okay, still the same. Okay, relax again. Sometimes it takes a few times for people to recognize the shift. And when something's been away for a long time, it's sometimes hard to grasp that it can be something totally different.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. How, if I'm doing this myself, so say after this broadcast is over, what do I go? Am I looking in a mirror? Am I just sitting, focusing on my pain level and just thinking, changing the perspective of
Yeah.
it? What am I
Well,
doing?
the way that I help myself is by helping others.
Okay.
Because it's so much easier for me to get out of my head and into my heart helping somebody else than it is to sit around and try and help myself. Because I know all my stories. I
Yeah.
can get out of my stories to help somebody else easier than I can to help myself.
You know what? I agree with that. That's one of the things with the publishing company. Pain, progress, victory. Taking your without pain there's no progress. Without progress there's no victory. So helping people take their stories from a thought to a realization. I totally agree with that because it takes the focus off of me, and I'm working with somebody else and I'm helping them through their story. We're not healing in the same perspective that you're healing, but as far as telling the story and getting it out, it's been amazing because I've seen grown men cry when they finally get their stories out. And it's not that it's not that they're crying because they're wimpy. They're crying from a sense of relief. Like, wow, this is out. And to see them at the beginning of the process and then going through the process. And you're right. Trust is a lot. Trust means a lot because you have to trust the process. So I can see that if you're saying relax and I'm in my head, and in my head I'm saying it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. And I'm not doing that, by the way. I'm not doing that.
I have had plenty of people that have said they don't believe that it will change, and it does. So just what somebody says isn't necessarily a reflection of what they know or what they believe. It's just what they say they believe. Right? But that's why it's so much easier just to show somebody a greater experience than try to explain it to them. Right? And like when I said relaxing isn't a requirement, because if I say relax, sometimes people will analyze whether they're relaxing or not enough. But if the amplitude is great enough it doesn't matter what you're doing, you'll have a greater experience.
Mhm.
Like if I'm out of my head and into my heart, it allows other people to let it go so much easier than if they're trying to let it go on their own.
And you know
Because,
what you said is a biblical concept too. Having a change of heart in
yeah,
order to start doing anything, in order to do something, or to become better than who you were the day before. It starts with a change. You've got to
yeah.
make a decision to change. So I like that. I like that
Change
change
your
in
choice. Yeah.
perspective. Yeah, you got to make
I'll
the
give you a biblical reference. Okay. The woman, she has enough faith to touch Christ's robe. Okay.
Mhm.
She touches his robe. She has an instant healing
Yes,
experience.
she does.
He turns around. She kneels down. She didn't have the change of heart until he said, "It's okay. Just
Mhm.
don't go do it again."
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? Then she was willing to let it go.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So really, that's the change of heart.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Right? The change of heart is when we no longer choose to do something else. Just like if you said you were in pain and you had a doctor's appointment next Wednesday, let's say, and
Mhm.
then I focus on you and the pain's gone,
Mhm.
then you get to choose whether you go to the doctor.
Right.
The change of heart, the person would say, there's no reason to go to the doctor
Mhm.
because I'm already better.
Mhm.
There are
Right.
times when somebody would say, well, I still want to go to the doctor
Just to see.
just to see. And then that's out of their heart. Now they're in their head. They're in that fear
Yeah.
cycle again,
Yeah.
right? As soon as the doctor's appointment is no longer important is the moment that it's permanent,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Just like I've had somebody with like a back issue and they take Advil at night to sleep and I focused on them and their back feels better, but then they still take the Advil just in case.
Yeah. Yeah.
They haven't quite had that change of heart, because if you have the change of heart, you no longer would reach for the Advil.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
So how's your leg feeling now?
Still the same. Still the same. Still have the tingling. So it's
Okay.
still the same. And I stopped thinking about it too. Because at
All
first
right.
I said, okay, when you first started, I said, okay, because I want to be out of pain. So in my head, I'm like, okay, this is gonna work, because I've had an elevation of pain this week because I had COVID several weeks ago, and COVID, my symptoms were mild, but the cough and all that
Yeah.
kind of triggered some things in the body. So I had the pain in my leg earlier, and for the last couple of days. So when you start doing that, I said, I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be out of pain. I want to be out of pain. I want to be out of pain. But I'm going to be honest. If the pain is not there, I want it not to be there.
Yeah.
So I want it not to be there. That's why I was asking. So with, what do I do? Do I continue to
Well,
just, or is
here's
this some techniques that you do?
well, for you, you're highly empathic. You operate very sympathically.
Yeah.
As soon as your perception shifts,
Mm-hmm.
all those things that feed into the pain are no longer there.
Okay. Okay.
Right? Just like I've helped hundreds of people with fibromyalgia.
Mm-hmm.
They're all highly empathic women
Yeah.
operating very sympathically.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it just flips and they choose to be different. Other times it takes a few times, because if you've been magnetic, let's say, your entire life,
Mm-hmm.
it's sometimes hard to grasp that you can then be the example of possibility and not a magnet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if sympathizing, let's say, goes like this, very contracting. Right now, you're feeling it and I'm feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
Example is like this. You know you're better, and then people know they're better. It's
Mm-hmm.
no different than if there's a room of negative people. There are people out there that will say you have to protect yourself from the negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you walk into a room with 10 negative people and you're protecting yourself, now there's 11 negative people in the room. And there's no possibility of it being anything else.
Mm-hmm.
When you walk into that room knowing that your positivity is enough, you don't need to protect yourself.
Right.
When you know your positivity is enough, the people then get to choose if they want to be more positive.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't get wrapped up into their choices. Right? As soon as you go into the room wanting to pick and choose who's going to be negative and who's not, or if they're being negative, then you're no longer the example of possibility.
Right. And you become a part of the masses.
Right. Right. Like,
I like
we don't
that.
need to protect ourselves from anything. I mean, even viruses and bacteria, we can be more than them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But when we start protecting ourselves from things, it puts us at the same level as those things, when
Mm-hmm.
we're meant to be more than those things.
That's a very interesting concept.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a very interesting concept. So, Michael, what's a regular day like for you?
Well, let's focus on your list a few more times.
Okay, we fixing me today. Okay,
Yeah. No, we're not fixing you.
I
We're
got you.
showing you that you're much better than what you thought previously.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're showing you there's another way other than having to fight through pain every day.
Mm-hmm.
That you can actually let go of the pain and then not have to fight anything.
Okay.
Right? This isn't like, there's a difference between fighting for something and allowing perfection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, we've operated in cause and effect for so long, we think that we have to fight our way through some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When perfection is already there, we just have to allow the space for that to come out.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, let's focus on you again.
All right, let's do it.
All right, what do you notice now?
Still tingling. Still tingling. No change in the pain.
Was it tingling before, or is it just tingling now?
Yeah, it's still, yeah, it tingles.
It tingles all the time?
Kind of like pins and needles because I have nerve damage.
Okay, so it's a painful tingle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, relax again. All right, how about now?
Still the same.
Okay, one more time. So, anytime you said something about it not working or whatever before, it's always working.
Mm-hmm.
It just sometimes takes us a little bit of time to grasp that something's working. Like,
Mm-hmm.
anytime we take time out of our day to help somebody else, it provides a greater experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, I agree with that. We're seed planters, so we're planting the seeds, and it'll, we water, it takes root,
Yeah.
so we don't get to see that all the time.
I mean, there's times I'll focus on somebody today, and in 30 days they'll message me and go, "Oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. I'm totally better."
Awesome. And I will definitely be messaging you to say, "Hey, guess what? This is the last 30 days have been great."
Yeah. I mean, I even have videos on my Facebook page, just like a 3-minute healing video that somebody can just sit with. And people will message me all the time and go, "You're not going to believe this. I was watching the video and all of a sudden my neck started working."
Oh, that's awesome. So it's on your, so people can find you on your social media, and they can check that, and they can reach out to you there, because I was going to ask you that. How can, if there's somebody listening, before we get back to me, if there's somebody listening and they want to reach out and connect with you, how can they reach you? Just on your Facebook page? Or
the best way is my Facebook page.
Okay.
Just the Michael Luman. I have a Michael Luman one, and I also have a Michael D. Luman business page. But most videos are on Michael Luman, or even on my Michael D. Luman business page. And then I've got a
Okay.
bunch of YouTube videos as well of me
Okay.
helping people.
Under Michael Luman.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's awesome because I know people will want to see that and see how they can be helped too. So I think that's great.
Yeah. Okay. So
You
one more
ready?
time on your leg.
Okay.
All right. What do you notice now?
Same thing. No change. How long? How? What's the longest you focused to help bring some healing?
Wait, you mean how
Like
many times or how much?
so I know you said you've done it reoccurring times with people,
Yeah.
but in one sitting, how long have you worked with somebody? You said something about you focused 8 hours. Was that 8 hours at a time, or is that in increments?
Oh, I mean, usually most of the time it happens within 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
Sometimes I have to do it a couple days in a row.
Got you.
Right? Because if somebody's experience has been so traumatic, like
Mhm.
your experience is, you're what? You said you were 52?
Yeah, I'm 52,
Right. So
and this
you've lived your experience for 48 years
absolutely.
over and over and over again.
And
So
I can relate to you when you said, hey, I'm not doing any more surgeries because there are doctors. I've had doctors to say, hey, we want to operate on your ankle or operate on your leg, or if you don't let us do this surgery, you won't be able. There's a 50-50 chance you won't be able to walk again. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not doing any more surgery. I'm
Yeah.
walking now, so the odds are
Yeah.
not good enough for me.
Yeah.
So I've
So
been through that.
for you, it might take a few times to start to recognize that you can be different.
Mhm.
Right. So I focus on people one-on-one a lot, but I
Mhm.
also teach an online class on how to heal yourself and how to do what I do and help others heal.
Okay.
That's
So
90 days.
how
Like,
does people is that on your website too?
it is, or most of it's word of mouth. So people can just contact me and I can give them the information. But
Okay.
like some of these things that are more difficult sometimes takes a little bit of time because we're having to shift an entire story.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. So my back and my hips healed instantly.
Mhm.
3 years ago, I decided I was going to run a half marathon without training. I
Mhm.
did it no problem. Then I chose to start running again. And then I still had to work through some stuff with my knee
Mhm.
because I've had 7 knee surgeries. I
Yeah.
blamed my right knee for everything that happened in my life.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. So there's still times where I have to learn to let that stuff go.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. And the doctor told me not to run ever again.
Mhm.
Right. So I have to overcome all the things that I thought that I knew back then.
Mhm.
Right. But I've learned if I can take one step, I should be able to take 5,000 steps.
Mhm.
I should be able to take 50,000 steps because
Mhm.
really time is one moment, one moment, one moment. So each step is its own step. Each
Mhm.
moment is its own moment to be whatever we create it to be.
Mhm. Mhm.
Most of the time we create out of the past because we don't think we have an option of creating from a different space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I believe
the
that.
information stored in so many different places. It's like in our minds, in our bodies, and all around us.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? Like I had a woman that was paralyzed from the waist down. I can get it to where she can kick her leg. I haven't
Mhm.
got it to where she can stand up yet. Because
Mhm.
she doesn't just have to overcome it for her, she's having to overcome it for everybody that's
Mhm.
paralyzed.
Mhm.
Right?
Mm.
Sometimes
Mm.
that's a lot to let go of.
Yeah. 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 It's The concept, it's the whole letting go. You can't move forward without letting go. So I totally agree with that. You have to choose to do so.
Yeah.
So even with working with you, and even with making a decision to use what you have, use your own abilities to heal, you have to want to do that. And if you, just like you said, if there's a block and you're holding on to it, even if you got to let all of it go, and I can see that if you let some of it go, and that's the world. We want to let some things go and
Yeah.
hold on to the other. You can't
Right.
have it both ways.
It's
So
just
I
like
can,
addiction.
yeah, yeah.
When I tried to get clean, I wanted to pick and choose
Mm-hmm,
the things I wanted to do. I
mm-hmm,
didn't want to use, but I still wanted to party on the weekends.
mm-hmm,
I didn't want to use, but I still wanted to go dancing or whatever it was. It
mm-hmm,
wasn't until I was willing to let it all go that
mm-hmm,
the choice was simple.
mm-hmm,
When I wasn't willing to let it all go, I struggled.
mm-hmm,
But once you make the choice, it is permanent. Like addiction isn't an issue with me anymore
mm-hmm,
because I've chosen to be totally different.
mm-hmm,
Not kind of different, not a little but totally different. And
mm-hmm,
so it's no longer an issue,
mm-hmm.
right?
You
It's the same thing with health.
Yes. Yes. Choosing to let go. I have people all the time who say, I don't see how you have all these things and you don't take pain medicine.
Yeah.
Well, it's a choice that I made because I didn't want to take pain medicine because I didn't like how it made me feel.
Yeah.
And they were just treating my symptoms. I
Right.
didn't want them to treat my symptoms.
And that would just be another thing to let go of.
Another thing to let go of. And
Yeah.
after actually literally fighting with the doctors and just saying, okay, the pain, going to the pain clinics, and they
Yeah.
just said, hey, if we can't do anything for you if you don't
Yeah.
want to take the prescription, we can't help you. And I said,
Yeah.
well, I guess you can't help me. And I decided, I made the choice to
Yeah.
not go.
Well,
But you have to decide, you have to choose, and whatever you do, you have to make a choice.
yeah. Even after my healing experience, it still took me 2 years to stop taking sleeping medication because I'd been taking it for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
took me 3 months of misery to work through that.
So you had to
Because,
go through. You had to go through I'm glad that you said that, because and I'm glad that we're working through this conversation, because there are people who would say, he healed himself, and if you would have said, yeah, I healed myself, and for the last 20 years my life has been perfect, I haven't had to work through
yeah,
anything, that would be real hard pressed to believe.
yeah,
So to say you still had to, and that's giving up when you've taken pain medicine for so long, or
yeah,
sleeping pills for so long.
yeah,
I don't take sleeping pills. I don't take anything to make me sleep, because I don't want to develop a habit of
yeah.
needing something to make me sleep. So
Exactly.
a lot of
I
people call
even
it,
gave up coffee like 45 days ago.
okay. I have a
But I
friend who gave up coffee.
yeah, but I don't want to be tied to things,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And that's what I had to work through with the sleeping medication. I also took Adderall for 18 years and I had to stop that. That was difficult
Mm-hmm.
too,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
right? But once you know that you have a choice, like healing is more about, or miracles are more about second chances than anything else,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? If the moment before I didn't think I had any options, the next moment I had my options back. So then I could choose to do whatever I wanted to moving forward, but at least gave me the space to choose differently.
So you
So,
gave yourself a chance.
or God gave me a chance, or
God gave you
Christ
a
gave me a
chance.
chance, or the quantum field gave me a chance, however you want to
Well,
look
you
at that.
allow you well, God is not going to do what we won't let him do for us.
Yeah.
So if we block God, he's not going to supersede that. So
Yeah.
you allowed yourself a chance.
Yeah.
And I like that. This has been a great conversation. As we get ready to wrap up, our time goes by so fast. Michael, how can people reach you again? And if they are interested in working with you, how can they reach out to you? And I have a last question. Have you written your book yet?
Well, in 2007, I wrote a book about my addiction.
Okay. What's the name of the book?
The book's 800 meters, but it's really not relevant to what I do now. I
Okay.
am in the process of starting to put together, because my addiction ended in 2000. In 2007, I thought that was my purpose, is to help addicts. So I wrote my book. I went on a 12,000-mile bicycle tour around the United States to promote it. Like, I didn't know that I was going to have this other
experience
that superseded that.
Awesome. So I you know what, I was going to ask that too, because there are so many people who they'll see your book and they'll read it, that won't come in contact with you, and then they'll be able to reach out to you. I think it's amazing, and I'm looking forward to working with you and knowing more about me. I've dealt with pain a lot, and if there's an opportunity for me to be without the pain, I already don't take pain medicine. I haven't. I will not. It takes a lot. I have to be at a level 12 to take something for pain.
Well, I'll message you for the next few days, and I'll focus on you, and we'll see if we can get that pain to shift.
And you know what? And when we do, I'm going to shout it to the rooftop. So if you want to reach out to Michael, please follow him on. He's on Facebook.
Yes.
Michael Luman, and check out some of the videos. Check him out on YouTube. Michael, thank you so much for coming and taking time from your schedule to have this conversation and sharing with our audience on how you healed yourself. I love that. And listen, if you have a story, and I know that you do, we can help you take your story from a thought to a realization, no matter where you are in your story writing journey, because 100% of everybody has a story. What you choose to do with your story and how you choose to tell your story, that's where the healing goes. If you have a story, and there's healing in telling your story, sharing your story. And as Michael has said, you can also heal your physical body and mentally too, because we go through a lot of mental and emotional challenges, and it's all stemmed from someplace. So tapping into that, changing your perspective, and be the example of possibilities for someone. I love that. So I'm LaQuita, and we're here every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and having conversations about the power of your story. Whatever your story is, your story has the opportunity to impact somebody else's life. So, Michael, I appreciate you for being here, because there's somebody listening who is going to be healed, because they're going to reach out to you so that they can get healing that they don't know that they can get. They've been told that they'll never be the same. They'll never, and you know that, so a lot of times people say, you'll never walk again. You'll never talk. Well, number one, my mom was told I would never walk again. I'm walking. I was told by the time about 10 years ago, I was told that in 5 years I would be in a wheelchair and I would never be able to walk. I'm still walking. So, it's all in the power of the mind. I believe that. So, you can take in what people want to tell you and let that be your life, but helping other people helps yourself. So, Michael, do you have any closing words for us? We have about 2 minutes. A minute and a half now before we close. Give us some closing words to our audience.
Well, now I'm on the spot. What to say?
Yes.
Well, I would just say that regardless of what somebody's told you, it's probably not the truth. Like, it doesn't matter what somebody has, because the next moment they can have something totally different. Like, I've helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that had things that they thought that they would always have, that they all of a sudden didn't have. And then they realized that they didn't need it anymore.
So you don't have to take what somebody says as the gospel. As my grandma would say, trust but verify.
Yeah.
Trust but verify. Thank you again, Michael. Reach out to us. You know what, Michael? It has been a plump, pleasing pleasure. Better than a triple-decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich to have you here today. And thank you, Lachelle Atkins, for introducing Michael to me. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Until next time, be good to yourself and believe in yourself. You can do anything you set your mind to. Thank you. See you next time.